Oh my gosh, hello. Oh no, but now I can't hear you.
You can't, hold on.
Oh, there I can.
No,
Okay.
I just need to turn it. I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. And then there are like deer roaming around outside. It's like in a thunderstorm. Like, oh my gosh, it's like Armageddon or something going on.
Well, thank you. My gosh, that was the most challenge I've ever had getting into an interview. And you were so persistent and you're so like calm, cool, collected, and just, gonna throw out all the tools to get it to happen. So
I honestly, I don't really know what was going on. Instagram, I was a little bit iffy because I did an interview this morning and it was being a little weird. So I didn't have much faith in that, but I figured we'll try it out. But we're on Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and put it live on Facebook. And like I said, anyway, I'm going to share it to all the things anyway. So we're just going to make it happen. It's happening.
your audio for some reason does keep cutting out though. It's
Does
weird.
it keep cutting out? Oh, I honestly don't know what's happening.
I mean, your video is fine. It's just sometimes I can see your mouth and I don't hear anything. And then,
yeah. Let me look here at what's going on with this. All right. Does that seem a little bit better?
I mean, it's fine. It's just every once in a while.
It's just coming out.
Yeah. So if you ask the question and I look like, doughy eye, just ask it again.
I can do that. I can do that. Or I'll just sit there looking that way too. And then we'll just sit there and just look pretty. That's it. That's all we need to do. It's fine. We'll just show a picture of plant. It's okay. Well, plants do the talking.
That's right.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and
Okay,
try to get that. We're gonna get this going. Yes, I want to do that. It logged in. Yes. Okay. Go live. Oh, it's preparing. All right. Yes, we know it's being live streamed. We should hope so. I have to laugh. It's just funny at this point. Like,
well, there's no other option, I think.
all right. It looks like, yay, we're here. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? And we made it. We did it. Thank you for all of you that have been kind of following us around the internet, because, that's really what we wanted to do today. We were just making sure everybody was up to speed and all their internets worked. And even though mine probably doesn't, who knows?
Mine definitely didn't. So
who knows? So anyway, let's get to it. Today we have Jen Frey, and she has a brand new book out. It is Communicating with Plants, and it is by Inner Traditions, published it. So I don't have the physical copy. I only was able to get like the e-galley of it, but I loved illustrations in it. Now, did you have an artist do that, or did you?
Yeah, that's one of my students, Lillian. She's great. So from the beginning, that was I was dreaming, like I knew there had to be illustrations. I am not an artist, but I was like, who could it possibly be? And it was like Lillian. That's the only one I could think of. And I asked her, and actually, she just reminded me of this, that she was in the middle of an intense weekend-long ceremony. And but it was a virtual, so she actually had her internet on, and I texted her right in the middle of like the highest point of the ceremony to ask her if she could do it. And she was just like, annoyed that this ding happened, but then when she looked, she was like, of course. Like, she was just so ecstatic. And it was great to work with her, because she gets the plants, and so to me the illustrations really bring forward the plant spirits themselves, and I couldn't imagine anybody else doing it. Yeah,
and the one with the heart with the plants, oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, so that was actually not the way she did it, but in my mind, I didn't have ideas for like really any of the images, but that one I kind of thought, oh, it would be nice if there was a heart in all the plants, but I never told her that. And she came out with that image. I was like, oh my gosh, this is even better than what I was thinking. And yeah, it was great.
Well, and then it's like an anatomical heart too. Like, it just makes it that much, just like intense, like, whoa, this is, really really happening, like this whole connection. Because in your book too, you have a whole section that talks about, connecting with your heart to connect with the plants. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So yeah, when we were doing plant communication, we always start from our heart, and really um, all good communication, we want to be in our heart. And we know that, like when we have, well, we might not consciously know that, but we can recognize when we're having conversations and we're just not getting one another or really frustrated, the conversations just don't go well. But when we can be centered in our heart and we're like really connecting with the other person, we also feel it. Like if we could tune in, we would feel our heart feels really good. Normally our bodies relax, we might feel a little more expansive. And so that's when we're in our heart space. And so being there allows for clearer communication, and we're more receptive. I mean, there's a whole lot about heart intelligence. We're solution oriented. Yeah, I'm drawing blanks on all of this stuff because I'm while they're running around. But basically, heart intelligence just helps us to see the bigger picture and helps us to get more accurate information, and just allows good communication and good connection. So that's the baseline for when we communicate with plants, is the ideal. I shouldn't say always, because of course, sometimes we're just in a really bad situation and a plant needs to step in and like get us out of that, or, bring our awareness to something else. But in general, when we're trying to connect with a plant and when we're trying to receive information from them, we want to start from being in our heart space, our heart coherence.
No, I love that. Yeah, I love that. And I think it is so important. And, and it's fine too, like that you don't explain it all too much, because we want everyone to read the book. That's what we want them to do. And so if you really want to, she gives some exercises on things to do to kind of connect and clear and all of that. And I like all of the exercises in the book too, because they're easy. They're not like these super long, complicated things, because a lot of people, when they are trying to work with plants or anything really, a lot of things are complicated and then they just don't do it. So I love that you made everything very easy to do. And, and it's really just with yourself or just what's around you. So that's really, really nice too, because you don't want to, once we make it complicated, we most likely won't do it. Right.
Right. Well, that was actually one of the reasons why we wrote the book, is because, I share a little bit about it in there, about my own story, that everybody I would try to learn plant communication from, it was always this complicated process that I didn't get. And so it just verified to me that there was something wrong with me, or I wasn't special enough. And the fact is that we're all able to communicate with plants. It is like so simple. And usually the hardest bit is just to overcome our conditioning. And that's like where my work is when I teach my classes, and also with the book, is just to help overcome that conditioning that we can't communicate. Because once you start, then you realize like, oh, I've been making this harder than what it is. And it's like, it really is an easy flow process.
Right.
So yeah, so that's the whole point of, doing this, is to prove that this is easy and anybody can do this, and we all need to do it.
Right. And, and we definitely like to overcomplicate everything. So that's a fact. And that's a definite fact. Absolutely. So, I love how you have some different plants that you go through and you tell a little story about them. So were these just kind of plants that said, okay, yeah, I need to be in this book? Or were you just kind of going through ones that you work with a lot?
Both. And so when I first started this project, I actually wasn't going to write a book about plant communication. I was really adamant I didn't want to do that. And I also didn't want to have the exercises, because I personally get frustrated when there's exercises in a book. So I was like, maybe 5 chapters in, and I realized like, oh my gosh, this isn't working. And so I went back to the plants, and they were just like, that's because this is the way you need to do it. So that first book project, I actually had I forget if it was 32 or 33 plants that I wanted to write about. And then again, by that point, I was just like, okay, if either this book's going to be over 1,000 pages long or I'm
Yeah, I
not.
was gonna say,
Right.
wow, that would be so long.
No kidding. Or, I wouldn't be able to like cover very much for each plant. And
Right.
so I just went with them. Like I already had a list of the subjects we wanted to cover and what plants we're going to talk about each. And so I just went back to them again. I was like, okay, who are the plants? And, and what are you covering? And so they really helped me to narrow it down. And some of them I disagreed with putting them in the book, but they were insistent.
You're just too great.
They were insistent, so I was like, all right, we're gonna have to put you in.
Oh my God, I love that. I love it. I also really like too that you kind of add a little story, a personal story to each plant too, because it does help to make it relatable as well. And I know you were talking about this one gentleman, Philip, who is just always very positive, and I wish I could meet him myself, because just you talking about him, I can get the energy from him just from you talking about him.
Mhm.
So, and I love that, and I think that people like that need to be celebrated a little bit more.
Mhm.
For sure. And hopefully everybody comes across someone like that in their life. But even if they didn't, I love that you added that so that the people, when they're reading it and they're going to do the exercises, they can just even pull from that, because the way you describe it, you can totally get the energy from it.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. Philip was a really great guy. So I just wanted, so for those who haven't read, just so you know, we were talking about how even in challenging lives, he just really brought gratitude, just gratitude for everything, and was always smiling and just grateful to be alive, and just really touched my life. And like you're saying there, like he was somebody that you might not even recognize, or like might not notice on the street because he's just an everyday guy, but he brought so much change to so many people's lives. And unfortunately, he did die even before I wrote the book. And his funeral was just, it was amazing. There was like, the place was bursting. There was like, we were beyond standing room only, and everybody there had the same experience with him of just, he was just a bundle of love and joy and gratitude, and just, loved life and loved people, and made their days better. So like, what a better way could you live?
I mean, absolutely. And I think too, it also brings the point of mindfulness. And when you are working with plants and plant spirits, and again, connecting to your heart, it's all about being mindful and just really dropping that all the crap from your everyday and just paying attention to what's around you. Right.
Right. Yeah. And don't we all need that?
Yeah, we do. And it's one of those things, like you hear about it so much, but we are all so stubborn. We need to be told a million times before we actually do it. So
Oh, yeah.
I think that's so important. So for people who have never worked with plants, I am a total plant person. I live on top of a mountain in a forest, so I am all about the plants. But what if somebody that hops on today and they've never worked with plants, and they're like, "What do you mean plant communication?" Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, it's about receiving information from the plants. And what, normally when we think about communication, we think about what we're doing now is verbal, like you're speaking, I'm listening, I'm speaking, you're listening, but also I'm looking at you. Obviously if we were on our phones, we wouldn't be able to do this, but I'm looking at you. So I'm getting information from you. I'm like, okay, are you getting what I'm saying? Are you not getting what I'm saying? Like, should I shut up now? Should I, so we do communicate so much more, even in our human days. Like, somebody can walk into a room, we might not even see them. If it's somebody that we love, we can already tell, like, oh, they had a bad day, like they need some help here. So it's the same way with plants, that what we mean by communication varies, and it's not necessarily the same for every person. And part of the reason why we have all these exercises in the books, and why I do all these exercises in my class, is to give people more exposure to the plants and different experiences. So you see how you get information, but also each time that we sit with a plant or we spend time with them, it just allows us to go a little deeper into that relationship. So, some people will hear words. Some people will hear them more internal. Like I generally hear them internally, but it's usually, for me, it's usually in a different voice or a different tone, or they use different words than I would typically use. Excuse me. Some people, well, I get images, other people get images. You might get sensations in your body. You can have weird things pop up, like you're suddenly singing a song from your childhood, or like something that may even feel inappropriate. You're like, why am I singing that? But at the beginning, we just observe it all. Like, and part of that observation is also what's going on in our body. What are we sensing? What's like, how are we feeling? Because sometimes we're sitting with a plant and we can feel like kind of sleepy, and we're like, or maybe we even fall asleep and we could be thinking, oh, this isn't working. But then you discover you're working with valerian, who helps you to sleep. So like, it's how is the plant responding to you? You froze, or can you still hear me? Right, I'm gonna keep going. Oh, there you are.
Yep, keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, just keep talking because I don't know what's happening today.
So the summary of all of that is what plant communication is like is dependent on each person, as well as with each plant, because each plant has their own little personality, I would say, and have their own gifts. I mean, they can all tap into the source and give us all universal information. But how we get that, that's part of doing the exercises, is we start to decipher what that information looks like for us, how we receive it, and then and we start to put it together. So you're freezing up again on my end. Oh, there you are. I can't hear you.
Nope, can't hear me. Can you hear me still?
Now I can.
All right. Yeah, I just keep talking about plants because we're gonna get through this no matter what happening. So I actually, it's really funny. We also have a house in Massachusetts, and we just got it a couple months ago, and somebody there, I think probably in the 80s, really was a plant person, and you could tell about what's growing outside. But the one thing that I noticed right away is there's kind of like a middle part, with the rocks around it, and in it is so much mugwort. So much mugwort. And I came home here on the mountain, and I went outside, another patch of mugwort. So that is the one that's following me around this year. Last year it was no, not dandelions. It was violets were following me everywhere. So do you have a plant that's kind of stalking you this year?
Oh, let me think about that. I don't know that I can name one. I mean, the plant that I'm looking at now is my yarrow. Yarrow's a big plant for me. And this place, where the Heart Springs Sanctuary, where I live, this is the 6th year that I've been living here, and yarrow is just really taken over more than I've ever seen yarrow grow. Like, actually, the plants that I brought with me here, I've been carrying with me for like several different moves.
Wow.
And so we're having a storm now. We had another storm earlier this week, which, thank goodness, it was our first rain in weeks. And
yes.
My yarrow is all blocking. They fell over, and they're blocking all the walkways out of the house. And also started growing right at the base of the steps to our deck, which is our main entrance into the house.
Wow.
So like there's no way. Yarrow's a protector, so I let that happen, because I'm like, whenever anybody's coming in, they're getting their energy cleared, and we are bringing us protection. So that's a big one. And the other one that's popping up, I guess, is motherwort. Motherwort also like has been taking over the sanctuary. Like, no plant I've actually, okay, I'm sorry. This is the one that I don't know that it's for me, but I've been noticing collectively is we have more poison hemlock than I've ever seen. Like,
wow.
There's always been poison hemlock on the grove, and poison hemlock's such a special plant to me that I love her and I let her grow here. But like a literal forest of poison hemlock started growing at the sanctuary this year. And then we were driving out, and I started noticing all the farms around here. There's just like, I'm talking probably 300-400 feet long hedgerows of poison hemlock, and like 10 feet wide. I mean, I've never seen so much. So I've just had this question in my mind when I see something like that, or when a plant's showing up so much like that. I'm like, what's going on? And because I don't feel that this one's just for me, I'm like, what's going on collectively?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to keep an eye out now too, because when we go through we go through Vermont to get to Massachusetts, and I'm in upstate New York. So we kind of go through all of that, and I'm going to keep an eye out now because I'm curious to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be driving up north too, so I'll be watching too. Is it just my area? Because maybe it's a message for our area.
No, I know, because that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh, right. Well, I guess I need to pay attention to that. We got like the mugwort, the yarrow going on. Okay, we need to watch out for sure. Okay, let me look. Because I was able, so what I usually do is when I have the physical book, I write all notes in it, but I had to write them all on my notepad because I had it on the Kindle this time. So I also too really I loved your story about the yarrow as well, and the willow tree, because I absolutely love willow trees. We did plant some here on the mountain. I've always had a very close connection with them. And I really was interested about like the sexual connection and all of that. I honestly just never even thought of that. So that was really interesting to me. And I really love that you brought that up as well. So can you just tell us a little bit about that, just so everybody's like, whoa, what's this about? I need to buy this book right now.
Sure. So just I want to preface it that I also never thought about that. But so what happened was, I don't even know when this was. It was many, many years ago. I actually had the privilege of doing a class with Starhawk at a local place around here. And we were asked to, it was actually at a local college. We were asked to go outside, and I don't know if it had to be a plant, but there was definitely an aspect of nature that we were supposed to connect with and use our senses. And we were supposed to have eyes closed. And I was drawn to this huge, huge, gorgeous old willow tree. And excuse me, as were like several other participants. And as I kept continuing to work with this tree, I eventually had an orgasm just standing there, completely clothed in this public place. It was just the energies that were moving through just brought that forward. And I was like, I had not even started studying sacred sex or anything. It was like so first of all, you have to understand where I live is Lancaster County. It's very conservative Christian, very like private. We don't talk about sex. So anyways, it was really kind of eye-opening. I was just like, whoa, and also very hot. Like, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. So even in my book, I share like as I would drive down the road and I'd see a willow, I'd start to blush for years later. It was like, who knew?
Going towards the willow trees today.
Right.
Just love that, and I love that you bring it up because like you said, it's kind of one of those things people are like don't always want to talk about. And I do tarot, and actually one of the presentations I'm going to be doing is talking about sex and tarot and relationships and how it comes up and all of that, because a lot of people just kind of want to like, oh no, that's happening, but let's push it aside. But I really think it's it's kind of like bonus, of course, but that if you take the time to work on yourself, work on really getting your mindfulness, learning to talk, to communicate with the plants, that there are many benefits to that. And then that's also about getting to know yourself a little bit better too, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's not something that like, I've been in classes, not that I was teaching, but that somebody else was teaching, and someone's like, let's learn about all the sex with plant stuff. And so to me, it's not about that, but the plants, having a healthy sexuality is part of being a healthy human, I think. And it's just, again, it's working with energy, and with sacred sex, we're creating love, we're bringing more beneficial energy into the world. And so of course the plants would help to support that and just help with the energetic flow. I mean, that's what they're doing. So yeah, so I think it is important that it makes sense to me that they support it now. Back then it was a huge shock. But
yeah, especially like, whoa, all of a sudden, like, woohoo, here we go.
Right. But I also think that's just perfect, because had I been going to a class that was the expectation, I probably actually wouldn't have gone to a class at that time. But I just think, it's just the fact that it came up so naturally just made sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it is part of nature. It is a part of, all of the things that function in this world, and and it's really just going to the fact of using plants, communicating plants, working with plant spirits, that it's healing.
Mhm.
And you're going to be opening up new parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed with the assistance of these plant spirits. So being open to that. And I think that, if this, even with your book, if that's something that you're like, oh, that sounds really interesting, you're on your way. You're already started your journey. So
Mhm.
I love that. And even just down to the title, it's nothing complicated. It's we're connecting with plants. That's what we're doing here. So I love that because there are so many wonderful books out there, but sometimes the titles do get that can be a little tricky too. And you're reading this like the alchemy of the plant spirits of the blah blah blah, and you're like, I don't know what this is. I'm not gonna bother. But with your book, I love your cover is beautiful. And it's just very inviting. Like your book is just very inviting, and I really love that about it.
Thank you.
And so there was another story too I wanted to talk about is the chicken story.
Oh, with my son, what chicken story?
So I had chickens for a long time. And unfortunately a fox kind of took that out. But I really love, you know, the perspective of it and how we see things differently than other people and we don't realize it. And I think the way you tied it in too is that, with working with the different plant spirits, it can also kind of open that up to you and the different perspectives on a situation as well. And so could you just give everybody just a little taste of that story so they know what we're talking about?
Yeah, so this is again ages ago. My kids were little. We tried to have chickens on our farm once and they got massacred I mean, like all at one time. It was
Yeah,
horrible.
same. No, same. It wasn't pretty. No, no, no.
No. So I really wasn't sure I wanted to have chickens again, but my son did a stint in public school and they were hatching them. And so I was like, all right, we can they only let you do three. So I was like, all right, we'll take three, but I only want females. And we ended up with two roosters and a female, which was like awful.
Oh, I
And
understand.
they crow at 3 a.m. There's nothing about the sun.
Time. Like
I
they
don't know.
don't stop.
I know. And they were like less than 10 feet from my bedroom window. So it was like all that, anyways.
Yeah.
So the hen finally started to lay eggs and we got two. And then my son forgot to close the chicken coop and raccoon came and killed that one that night. And so then it was like, please, 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 let the other ones die. One more died, and then we were left with one other one. So we left it to my son, like, what do you want to do? It's not fair to have this rooster all by himself. Like, should we just
Right.
let him go? Should we give him to a farm? You want to harvest him? And so he decided to harvest him. And it was like, I don't know, 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night. And my now ex and I looked at each other. We're like, we're not taking a chance on him changing his mind. So let's just go do it. And so I will give a little warning. This is a little gruesome, at least from my perspective, it's a little gruesome. I'll say that. So my perspective of the story was that my ex did not sharpen the axe. And so when he went to, cut off the head, it didn't work. And it was like, I'll save you the big details, but it was just awful. And I was horrified by this. And so many, many years later, my son, now a teenager, at the time it was between second and third grade. So I don't know what, like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
So as a teenager, he's talking and he says, Mom, do you remember the chicken? Like what happened with the chicken? And I'm like, preparing myself like all parents do when you're like, oh no, this is one of the therapist stories. Like,
Oh no, I'm gonna get on the phone now and call
right.
someone.
Right. So he's just like, all right, Mom, do you remember that story? So I'm preparing myself. Well, his perspective was completely different. He saw the chicken laying their head down, like offering themselves for this. And so for him, it was this really beautiful moment and just seeing species like, I don't know that communication is the right way, but just the nature of life and how we give and we take so it was so beautiful. And it was just like amazing to me that we had such different experiences from that. But it has been a major lesson for me, and definitely with the plants, they teach us that all the time and they encourage us. That's one of like the lessons that they've been big from them, was encouraging me to, when I think a situation is so dire or so challenging, to then, look at it from a different perspective, and I can see it differently. And then, also when we get into connection with our humans, it's like sometimes we just, again, we're stuck with, I think of our horns like out, and our horns are just connected, and because we're each in our own perspective, and forgetting that we only have one piece of the puzzle, and that's why we need to be in community, so we can see a wholer picture and a more complete picture in another way.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And what better community to tap into for that than the plant community,
Of
right?
course, of course.
It's
Thankfully,
perfect.
right.
Okay.
Thankfully, they guide us and support us in that as we
Yes.
trip and be such humans.
Yes. Thank you to all the plants right now. Tree, it's just waving. It likes it. It likes its whole conversation. No, I love it. And so one other before we wrap up, another one you included, which was really interesting to me, was corn.
Mm,
And when you really do think about the corn plant and what it's brought to humans, what it's brought, to just even the land itself, it's definitely one of the ones I just didn't even like think of. So can you just talk about that one a little bit? Because I thought that was really interesting. I'm really glad you included that.
yeah, so I share in there, again, I live in a rural area, and it's like filled with GMO cornfields. It didn't used to be, but still
Mhm.
all my life, like corn was just such a big deal. I'm sure it was for you in New York State as well. I don't know if that's where you grew up, but like, here it's like corn season, everybody's counting down the days, and people gather the whole families, and you freeze huge amounts, and it's just such a special time.
Yeah.
Um, so corn has always been special in my family, and I love the plant. But then when I did my apprenticeship with Pam Montgomery, she had studied for many years with Martin Prechtel. And he has a number of really fabulous books. So he shares the story of this sacred corn from the Tutsomayan in his book, The Unlikely Piece at Kuchmakwick. So it's a great story. I don't want to tell it, but read his book. But I'll give you the little synopsis: is that this corn was was sacred to the people of the Tutsomayans, and they believed it was destroyed through horrible government warfare, because like, what's the same pattern we always do when you're at war with somebody? You just destroy their food crop, and then you can control them. So that's what was going on in Guatemala. And somehow this corn managed to survive. So when I did my apprenticeship with Pam, she gave us 3 little kernels, and that's it. Like, so if anybody's planted corn, normally you plant a huge amount because it's wind pollinated, so you want a big block. But we had
Yeah.
3 kernels. And again, I was surrounded by a cornfield at the time, so I'm like, how am I going to keep the sacred corn sacred? Like, it's going to get polluted if I grow this. So I put them on my altar to think about it, and the mice helped themselves to it. The mice were like, thank
Of
you.
course, because they're around where we are too, of
Of
course.
course, they're like, this is a great offering. Thank you. I lived on a huge farm back then, so yes,
Yeah.
and in a straw bale house, where the mice, really thought I built a house for them.
Right, exactly. It wasn't your house.
No. So anyway, they ate the corn, and I was so heartbroken. But then fortunately, we live in this universe of second chances. So I had another opportunity. Some other friends of mine gave me their corn that also came from Pam and Martine, and then the Tutsomayan. And so since then, I've been growing that corn, and it's been such an amazing experience. I grow this every year. I started with 3 kernels. Now, I don't do huge blocks, but I harvest this corn for prayers and offerings, and I give to my students. And the big, I'm not quite sure if there was a particular part of the chapter you wanted me to share, but the big lesson for me was during COVID. So first, I always plant this corn by our deck, because I've discovered one, I like to hear the wind through the leaves, but I also discovered when my students are here, the corn starts growing towards my students, like will lean over the deck to be around them. And then when they leave, the corn straightens up again. And so
Oh,
it's like,
that's
wants
so
to be in
cool.
community with us. And the Tutsil Mayans that this corn comes from, they consider themselves corn people. There's no separation of them. They are the corn. So during COVID, I was growing this corn and I was just overwhelmed. So I normally say prayers and songs and I celebrate the corn, and I wasn't doing that. And that year when I harvested the corn, there was hardly any ears. And what was there, they were so deformed. And I think maybe there's just a few kernels on them. And so it was a real big lesson to me of like, we need to sing to these plants. They require our efforts. They require our connection with them. And it is like, it's co-creating, like it's together. We bring forward each other. We bring forward the fullness of each other. And by me ignoring the corn was like, well, I'm not going to create this. Normally they're gorgeous white kernels. So I don't know if you had another part you wanted to set me to say, but that's the part.
It's whatever you wanted to share was perfect. And I absolutely love that. And I'm glad that you were able to at least get a couple kernels to like carry it on. So that was good. At least gave you that much, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. And I always have a little extra in reserve too, but yes, we were definitely able to keep going. And since then, I am sure I actually haven't planted my corn yet. It's going to happen this weekend, but now I'm sure like we will sing. And actually I also dance with the corn. Like it's a requirement of them. And so I'm happy to feed them for that.
No, and I love that because I'm a very music person. I love music, and I play music for so I have some altars here. And the plants on my altars, they like chanting. So I have to do the chanting. And if did I freeze again?
Not on my end.
All right, good. I thought I saw like a little circle. I was like, no. And it's really interesting too, because if I don't, usually, I try to keep up with it, but sometimes things are going on and you miss a couple of days. And I'll look over on my altar and my poor plant looks like so unhappy. And I'm like, oh no, I forgot to play the music for them. So I really think that's so important. It's so important. And and I know on like Pandora and stuff, they actually have playlists for plants.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So that's a thing. Okay. And I'll do that sometimes because most of my plants, I live in like a log cabin. So it's all windows. And so like, that's obviously where most of my plants are. So I'll sometimes just put it on in there. Like if I'm just like cleaning or something and just put music on, and I put music on for them because they like it.
Yeah. That was one of the lessons from my grandfather from like young age. We had to play music in the greenhouse all the time, not all the time, but he always played music. When we were out in the garden, we sung to the plants, and especially the strawberries, we always sang when we harvested.
Oh my gosh. I love that so much. And like just the picture in my head of that, I love it. Oh, that's so awesome. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and wrap this up? Because we are just getting to an hour. So why don't you tell everyone where to find you if they'd like to learn more?
Sure. So my website's Brigid's Way, and I spell Brigid Brigid, Brigid's Way. And so there's, the books there. I have classes, I have articles. There's all kinds of information there. So
I love it. Yeah, definitely. And the book is available now. So if you'd like to go ahead and grab that, you can go to your favorite book place, wherever. And that is totally fine to do and grab it. And also too, if you do have Jen's book, make sure to go on and do a review. Tag her in it, go and do a review on Amazon, doing all of this, because that really helps authors and it really helps the publishing companies know when to order more and all of that stuff. So it seems like a silly thing, but it actually is so helpful to authors and creators as well.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your patience with all of the hullabaloo, but sometimes when I have people who are very high energy, like me, we tend to break stuff. So I'm blaming both of us. I hope you don't mind, but I'm blaming both of us.
I'm just happy it's not just me. So
no, it's definitely not just you. It's, you know, one of those. And like I said, it's definitely going to thunderstorm here. So we have like that extra, there's just, I could feel it. The energy is very dense today. So, yeah, but you know what? I definitely want to have you on again. And, maybe next time we'll talk about your classes, and all of that good stuff. Cause I'd really like to hear more about that.
Sounds great. I'm happy to talk with you.
Well, you have a fantastic day, and, we'll chat soon.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, if I can. Sure. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's see. I'm trying to make, there we go. Stop live stream. There we go. It just keeps saying thank you. I can't with this day. 7 times, that's kind of creepy. My creepy weird voice going, thank you. 7 times. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Not in a weird creepy voice. I appreciate it. And
It wasn't a weird, creepy voice.
what a weird, it's so weird. And I have to actually do another interview right after this.
Oh gosh. Okay. I hope it goes better. I feel the first thing was my computer. I realized that there was another program I did recently that my camera wouldn't work, even though it used to work for it. So I don't know why. I can't figure that out. But I will try to figure it out.
Yeah, you definitely, yeah. But yeah, and then Instagram is just it's fine. And honestly, I think at this point too, with all the internet stuff, we all just need to chill out about it. It's not going to be perfect. And I'm not that type of person. Like, I'm not super anal about it. As you can see, I'm just like, it'll be fine. Fine. Funny because I have like a big money tree over here and a plant, and it just keeps like waving. So it's waving at us. It's probably thinks this is hilarious, but thank you so much though. I really appreciate it. You did an awesome job. And I'm going to tag you. I'm going to tag all of your information. So hopefully we can get some people over there and sign up for some of your stuff and buy some books.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. I'll talk to you.
Take care, Jen.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.